Welcome to Connecting with Corinne, the podcast where I help you find your community one story and connection at a time. I'm your host, Corinne, and each week I explore inspiring conversations that connect us to the world around us, spark new ideas, and help build stronger, more meaningful connections. Whether it's through personal stories, thought-provoking discussions, or shared experiences, we're here to bring diverse perspectives to the table. So let's dive in and start. Welcome to another episode of Connecting with Corinne. I'm your host, Corinne, and I am here with the amazing Derek Traquair. How are you today, Derek?
Really well. How are you now?
I am well, thank you. So I am in the presence of greatness. He won't admit to this, but he is known as Captain Murder on Discord. And you have created the Warhammer community, or helped create the Warhammer community, not just in the Calgary area, but I would like to think that you're probably involved in regional and Alberta, as well as nationally and internationally. So you have been on the Path to Glory podcast 5 times, which is a Warhammer podcast. You have also won a few championships in Warhammer Underworlds. So that would be the Alberta Classics in 2022, the Las Vegas Open in 2023, and you have gone to the Worlds in the last couple of years since its inception in 2023 in Atlanta. So you won the best overall in 2023. You competed last year in 2024, and you are going to be back there in November for this season.
These are all true statements.
Yes. And how I know you is not actually through the Warhammer community, but we play rugby together. So we are part of the Calgary Knights Rugby Club, and we're both wearing our Knights jerseys today, our training jerseys. I started in the club in 2019 with the women. They had a women's touring team at the time. And you joined a year after in 2020 during COVID.
That's right. Actually, and it's a little bit interesting how that came about. For anyone in the rugby community in Calgary, you'd probably know Stephen Taylor or Sanchez. I used to play for the Calgary Irish for quite a number of years. And at one point, I was looking to retire. The Irish were dropping their rec team or the recreational team. I really wasn't feeling that I'd be able to play at that high a level. And while Sanchez also played for the Irish, because we both lived in the South, if we wanted someone easy to go for a beer with, we were each other's first calls. So for quite a long time, we'd have one or two, never anymore. That would be sort of out of line. But we'd have a couple and discuss what's going on. And at one point, he gives me a call and he convinces me that the Knights could use someone of, we're going to use the polite term, my experience. In his terms, he's like, yeah, we need another old guy on the team. Come on. That's literally what got me back into it. I switched my colors, and Sanchez then unfortunately passed away not long after that. I always have very fond memories whenever I get to put on a Knights jersey of how I got there.
Yeah. And I met Sanchez in 2019. Whew, you're gonna make me cry. Sanchez. Yeah, I got to meet him in 2019 when I played with the women, and he was just an amazing person. And as soon as I met him, we hit it off. He pretty much took me under his wing for teaching me all things rugby, that stuff I didn't know, and reminded me how to play again. And I had played for a while, but my rugby career's been off and on and spotty here and there. So it really hasn't been a career. Yeah, he was a good man. So I miss him. Sanchez, yes, he was an amazing man. But yeah, we ended up getting to know each other in 2020 a little bit. So at that time, I think the Knights Rugby Club was maybe one, if not the only club that was able to do the return to play. So we did a few practices, and it was in August, end of August, beginning of September. And I think we did a little run around West Winds Park for like 6 weeks or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, we really didn't get a lot of practice in for a couple of years. But
No, we didn't.
that might have been good because there were a lot of half injured rugby players that were able to heal up for 2 seasons. So
Yeah. And then in 2022 is when I think we really got to know each other, because at that time I was on the board for the women's VP. We went to Jasper with the women, and I played there. And then about 3 weeks later, I broke my leg playing in a game. So it wasn't with the Knights, it was with the Grizz, and we were combined with the Canucks at the time. Anyway, it was when I met you at Stampede Sevens that I know I never let you forget. I was on crutches and no, I didn't have a boot or anything on, but I was high on painkillers and you had a one too many wobbly pops at the time and
Yeah,
we
if
had
I
some
recall
very
correctly,
interesting conversations, let's just put it that way. And they
yeah,
were hilarious and very memorable. I think that brought us a little bit closer together and we've become friends since then and have had some really interesting chats. And that's why I have you on today
yeah,
because I think after one of our practices and drinking a little bit, you told me you were involved with Warhammer
yeah.
and how you've created that community. And I was really interested in it because my ex-husband used to play Warhammer. So I knew a little bit about it, so I could kind of understand what you were talking about. That's why I have you on. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Derek.
The the real thing about it, a lot of people will say I'm a bit like an onion. I've got a lot of layers, but the more you peel back, the more you tend to cry. The Warhammer is actually pretty deep in there for a very long time. I actually wouldn't talk about that very much because I definitely had that embarrassment that you have this big nerdy hobby. I build Bitcoin miners. I'm an industrial project manager by trade. So I do quite a few other things, but of course, like any good high school bully, Corinne never lets me forget about the Warhammer. So that's where we come to today.
So how did you get into Warhammer? How old were you when you started? How did you get into it?
Yeah, so it's actually funny. I started playing Warhammer my first year of high school, which strangely enough is also the first year that I started playing rugby. So they've sort of always been around. Back then, one of the interesting things about Warhammer is that there's actually about a dozen to 15 different Warhammer games. There's the big sci-fi version where you've got a bunch of space marines. There's the fantasy version where you can have a big Tolkien-esque army. And there's even a Warhammer style rugby called Blood Bowl, where you have orcs and elves and everyone else running around in football gear, which is also quite a bit of fun. I played almost all of those games at some point over the last 30 years. 7, 8 years ago, Games Workshop, which is the company that makes Warhammer, they came out with what's called Warhammer Underworlds. And essentially, it's a small skirmish version of their fantasy game. I really took to that, first off, because the games don't take 3 hours to play. In the hour and a half, 2 hours, you can get a best 2 out of 3. It's a really tight rule set, so you're not arguing with the people that you're playing against hardly about anything. And they put together a really good way for your community to get together, as well as for a competitive scene to get together. So shortly thereafter, me and a few other people, several of them who play rugby, which is actually really funny, started forming a bit of a local team, and then surprisingly reached out to other cities that were starting up their teams who also had rugby players. So I always bring a Knights jersey to trade with whoever were out there in case that they're also a player. And since then, just like everything with COVID, we weren't really able to play very much. But at the time, Vassal or Tabletop Simulator came up, and that really caused everybody around the world who was interested in playing this game to be able to connect with each other. So, very in short order, I was playing against guys from the Netherlands, from the UK, Australia, a bunch of guys down in the States, and of course across Canada here. So once COVID was over, one of the things that Games Workshop wanted to do was actually start the World Championships of Warhammer. So they had actually not done this before, and they wanted to do it as a way to foster the community and really have sort of the way for competitive players to be able to go to a World Championships to play against the very best in the world. And they have it for 4 games. They have it for Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, which is a skirmish version of the sci-fi Warhammer, and Warhammer Underworlds, which is my game. So we, as soon as they started doing that, our team really started putting in a lot of effort into it. So the Calgary Underworlds Night Teams. So if you want to start using those anachronisms, you'll start realizing that we have a 6-year-old sense of humor. And the Canadian League of International Tournament Shadespire and the Alberta Night Vault Upper Sanctum all started forming our various groups. And despite having the not really funny but 6-year-old style humor names, we were able to form a pretty good community of that, both locally and throughout Canada. And we're able to be actually the most represented country at Worlds this year. So we're really proud of that.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
It's
So
not,
how did
it's so nerdy.
No, it is though. It's cool that you're able to just connect all these people together
Mm.
from around the world, and even with just a game and with little guys playing against each other.
It gives us an excuse to play with our little toys. Yeah.
But it's a bonding experience too, because I know you also have to paint them.
That's right. And you can actually see to my right here is where I do a lot of my painting or hobby. And here I do keep it separated from the computer and the work area here. Mostly, especially during COVID, I was notorious for during Zoom meetings, I would be painting a little guy just under the camera while supposedly being engaged in a pretty important meeting here. So one of the downsides of COVID being gone is that I don't get to just hang out and pretend to work while painting my toys anymore.
But you still get together with all these guys. So you
We
guys
do.
meet every Tuesday night, is that right?
Yeah, every Tuesday night in Calgary. So Calgary Underworld's Night Tuesdays, and we'll see you next Tuesday if you can't come that week. We've got two shops in Calgary that really support us: Century Box Games on the southwest, and then Ogre's Den Gaming Club in the northeast. Those two shops have been awesome to us over the years. They'll let us host tournaments or events to help recruit, and they've got great gaming space there. So we'll usually get between half a dozen to a dozen guys, depending on what's going on that week. Because we're consistent about it, we'll often get out of town people. So if someone from Vancouver or Edmonton, or most recently Oreo from Saskatoon was in, they'll come for a couple games, hang out with everybody, chat game. And because of that, we've been able to build, it's called the Alberta Classic, which is the largest Underworlds tournament in Canada. We're actually quite proud of that. And because that's been so big, GameCon Canada up in Edmonton is now hosting for the Games Workshop made them what's called a Warhammer Open. So Alberta actually gets to host two major Warhammer events this year.
When are they happening?
The Alberta Classic is May 3rd, and then GameCon Canada up in Edmonton is June 14th to 16th.
Cool. And how do people qualify or how do they get into these competitions?
So first off, come any Tuesday. We're always happy to show people how to play. We've got plenty of teams and boards and everything to let people test drive and see if it's their thing. And then because it's Tuesdays, there's cheap tacos and cheap beer at the nearby brew house, which they've gotten to know us really well over the years. And then as we have events, everybody's welcome to come to sort of the Alberta events. The winners of those, they do it super golden ticket style, that if you win, you get the trophy for winning that major tournament here, but then you also get your ticket to go to Atlanta for the World Championships each year.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then so on Tuesdays you meet in both locations or is it
uh
particularly one over the other?
no, we'll alternate just because that way everybody gets to sort of come by, and there's quite a few people on one side of the city or the other. And in order to make sure that everybody's able to get in, where we try and switch that up just for easy access for people.
And how can people find out about where you're going to be?
Facebook is probably the easiest. The Warhammer Underworlds Calgary page will certainly find us there. If you just Google in Warhammer Underworlds Calgary, that's usually a pretty easy way to find it. Or you'll find one of the other Canadian teams. We do a lot of trash talk. Unfortunately, we have let everybody know that they are not the best pound for pound team in Underworlds. And so, along with that, quite a few Canadians do go down to the United States tournaments, and we steal a lot of their tickets. So last year at the Alberta Classic, we were actually really honored to get about 10 guys from the States. We had a couple guys from Europe. It worked out to be a really fun time, just everybody coming in. And there's definitely a lot of trash talk. I don't know the number of times I've been called America's hat, but them damn Yankees, we do our best to go down there and steal their hardware, eh?
Oh, that's so amazing though, Derek. Was it the Century Box or Game Workshop that started the Alberta Open?
So
Like
that
in
was actually
Calgary?
started by Adrian at the Ogre's Den Gaming Club. it was originally just done because one of the things that Adrian wanted to do was really create a community. If you want to talk about creating a big community, not just a very niche little gaming section like I have, he would really be the guy for it. He had this vision of having essentially a big store that you can get 100, 150 people in order to be playing their games of choice so that you didn't have to book it off just because one game's going on that weekend. You could have one major game and then three other smaller games going on throughout the store. So, really big playing area with a very small store area. And so they keep stock of what's going to be there. And one of the nice things about it, because I've seen the Games Workshop community, especially, really support them for being willing to provide this huge gaming space. And so, because of it, they get a lot of support from their customers. That if as new things come out, it'll be on the shelves and usually off the shelves very quickly. And if you need something, it comes in, I believe, every Wednesday. They get their weekly orders in. So it's not like you're waiting for things. For hobby guys like me that like to do a lot of painting, they keep a full rack of paints, brushes, anything else that you need in order to either paint your little toys or make a pretty good mess with your nephew, which I've done several times. And sorry to everybody that's had to clean that up, but it makes for a pretty good spot. So one of the things that they want to do was create a major tournament that would happen every year. Initially, too many of my stories involve me getting drunk, but at the Las Vegas Open in 2023, the senior organized play manager and the vice president of something, Zach Rochner and Mike Brand from Games Workshop. These are two gentlemen that I've gotten to know over the years, and I love them to death, and they put up with me, so thank you. They were doing a preview of upcoming models, and then they decided to open the floor for questions. And Derek, who's been in Vegas for about 6 to 8 hours at this point, and I only do Vegas one way. And so I got on the mic and started yelling that they're not supporting Warhammer Underworlds like they should, and it could be the best competitive board game in the world, and they need to start doing it. And not long after, they started answering my emails and providing us with a fair amount of prize support. And then right away, we got recognized as a major tournament, and we're able to issue golden tickets. So whoever does win in each of the events gets to qualify for the World Championships.
That's so great. And tell us a little bit about your experiences like doing the competitions.
So there's a couple ways. I've probably run more tournaments in Canada than anyone else at this stage. I've also lost the most games in the world of Warhammer Underworlds. One of the big things about it, if you're ever trying to teach someone a board game, the rule of let the Wookiee win really comes into effect because you can really show anyone that you're the best at the game that you're playing, or you can let them enjoy it, figure out how to do what they need to do. And one of the most rewarding parts about that is as time goes on, after a couple months, they get to that level where they provide you with a decent game. And I really believe that Mithril sharpens Mithril. And because of that, we have the best pound for pound team in Underworlds in Calgary because we've built that community. So when you talk about playing, the Las Vegas Open was probably the first major tournament that I went to. I think if I remember correctly, the first time I went down there was actually during COVID, or no, sorry, before COVID, because I was still playing with the Calgary Irish. And when I went down there, it was a year or two after we had played with the Las Vegas Irish.
Mm.
And so I got down there and I couldn't find my Warhammer friends. And I was supposed to stay in their hotel room. It turned out that they had fallen asleep early. And so I wasn't able to get a hold of them. So I threw a flag up to the Vegas Irish. And God, they got me smashed. We had a really good time. I show up to the Underworlds tournament the next day. I'm still cut. If I remember right, I placed fifth that day. So still did pretty good for how just falling down silly I was and made some really good friends as a result. That was really a great experience. I've gotten slightly more serious when I've needed to win. Going down to the Vegas Open in 23 and 24, I actually arrived and did not have a drink until after I won. So that was the sacrifice that the Warhammer gods demanded, that I stay sober in Vegas for 3 days. I got to tell you, that's the hardest thing to do. If you're a gambler, do not gamble on me doing that again. What's neat about it, you go in there, there's a lot of preparation. You want to make sure that you have your models painted and you know how you're going to play. You know what you're going to do, and you get to meet people that are on that same level as you, that care about it so much. In some of the other Warhammer games, and even any board game, I'm sure if you've played chess or Monopoly or any of the other games, you flip the board over at some point, especially if you have anger issues like Corinne. And Warhammer is no different. There are definitely people that will have a bad beat and have a big issue with it. The big thing about Underworlds that means we don't get such a toxic environment for that. First off, the games are quick. So instead of 2 to 3 hours, a game is a half hour to 45 minutes. So you play 2 out of 3. So you won't get one big loss because it's that 2 out of 3. And if you can't beat someone twice, then you can't do it at all. You never had your car. The other side of it is that because it's on a board with measured out spaces as opposed to playing with a tape measure, you're not arguing over measurement issues. And that makes the game go very quick. The rule set is very well done. And so, really, when it comes to playing in those tournaments, to sort of draw it back to your question, it means that you don't have those same arguments and those same bad feelings that some competitive board games can give you.
Mhm. And then just tell us a little bit more about how you created the Warhammer community in Calgary.
So there was always a Warhammer community. I've specifically just done the Warhammer Underworlds community. And that really started before COVID, of course. We had a lot of really good people, a lot of really good players. But then COVID hit, and you can go play board games with people. There's a program online called Vassal that acts as a tabletop simulator. And that's one of the things that really started getting a lot of international people talking to each other, being able to share ideas about the game and really be able to improve their game quite a bit. So when the plague was over and people started being able to play games again, one of the things that I wanted to do was take what I learned there, share it with the 2 or 3 other people in Calgary and Edmonton that had been active online for the 2 years of COVID, and start rebuilding a community. And it's one of those things I realized that if I wanted a bunch of people to play toys with me, I needed to cowboy up and actually create that. So I just threw up that Tuesday nights, this is where I'm going to be. There were probably months when only 1 or 2 people came. I've taught far too many people how to play this game. It's meant that with that patience, we got more and more people showing up. Now we regularly have 8 to 12 people that are there just at our local scene. Edmonton's got a great team. Vancouver's got a great team. Victoria Island has a great team. Saskatchewan has their team. Ottawa has like some top flight people, surprisingly, in it. We're across the country now, which is great. That's one of the things. We've got our hashtag Canada Stands, because we were able to get a lot of pretty high level players together. We're very lucky that we're able to do it all in this condensed environment of Calgary, of Alberta, which is one of the reasons why we were able to get the Alberta Classic recognized as it was. So building that community, it definitely took years to do, but it's been worth it, seeing what everybody's been able to do from that.
That's great, Derek. And then can you just tell us more about your experience with Team Canada and going to Atlanta?
Yeah,
So was it the
so
Underworlds? Is it just the Underworlds team, or was it with all of the Warhammer?
so it's the 4 main games of Warhammer that they do the World Championships of.
Mhm.
So Team Canada had representation in all 4 games, of course. For Underworld specifically, we did a couple things. So first off, there's a great team in Vancouver, and there's a major tournament in Tacoma, Washington every year. So the Vancouver team sends people down there, and it's funny, they call it the US Open, but I don't think a US citizen has ever won it. By the same token, I had gone down there. I won the Las Vegas Open for a couple years. And then there's quite a few other major tournaments. But along with that, there's the Canadian Tabletop Championships in Ottawa. There's the Warhammer Open in Edmonton, the Alberta Classic. Vancouver has Minis and Mayhem. So there are about 5 or 6 major tournaments in Canada through the year, plus the couple that we were able to steal from the United States. And what that meant was that we put together a bit of a plan to get as many Canadians, really to stack that deck as possible. So we were really happy in the first year, 2023, we actually got 6 Canadians qualified. 3 of us made the cut, like the top tournament cut. I'll shout out to Stephen Painter from Vancouver. He had come in, I want to say second in the Minis and Mayhem tournament in Vancouver, but the gentleman who won wasn't able to come. So he got the ticket. And one of the interesting things, we decided that we needed hockey jerseys if we were going to go to the World Championships. So we had some custom jerseys made, complete with a Canadian maple leaf slash Warhammer symbol on the crest and came on there. And of course, being Captain Murder, mine has a K on it. Then you had Stephen, who put S for substitute on his. He had probably the biggest case of imposter syndrome in Warhammer I had ever heard of. He wasn't quite sure if he should be there. And he got third in the world. So for a substitute, he did pretty good. The gentleman who won the tournament that year, I should clarify something. His name's Amon Kushro. He's from Texas, a really amazing guy. He won the competitive tournament, whereas I won the best overall. So that included all the hobby scores and everything else about that, which allowed the two of us to take home a trophy and really argue about who the best in the world is, which I got to tell you, it went for 364 days until neither of us won in 2024. I love you, Amanda, if you're listening. He also runs that Path to Glory podcast. He's a really great guy. So Team Canada went down, all in our hockey jerseys, imbibing a fair amount. And I'm sure I probably did the majority of trash talking, but it was certainly something that we enjoyed. And people recognized it. So the next year, all of Canada, whichever game system, had their jerseys. So all of Team Canada got to go down with the same jersey last year in 2024. We made those connections. What was interesting about it, by sort of putting together our plan in 2023, the next year everything expanded and we actually had 11 go down as opposed to 6. We had the most, our Canada had the most Underworlds players out there. We weren't able to pull it off this year. We did have 4 of us make the top cut of the tournament. 3 of us from Alberta, which is one of the reasons why I do call us the best pound for pound team in Underworlds. We're really proud of what we've been able to do there. I do equate it to a rugby season. And what's funny is that 3 of the other guys play rugby too. We realized that we were modeling our entire plan to go by a season and make sure we qualified in the tournaments and make sure that we got our entire team on the pitch.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's not.
It is cool. I like it. And so what's the plan for 2025?
So 2025. So first off, there's the Alberta Classic on May 3rd. That's in Calgary. We actually have 3 qualifier spots available for that. What's interesting about it is that I think all 4 Canadians. One of the interesting parts about it is that if you make the top cut for the tournament at Worlds, you automatically are entered in next year. So 3 of us from Alberta are already going to Worlds. We will all be at the Alberta Classic. I'll be running it and imbibing. And I think the other guys will be playing. The big part about it is to try and it's more to make sure that we get more Canadians on the team.
So you're one of them. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're one of them that's going back to Worlds this year.
That's correct. Yeah. So I'll be doing that. So we'll get everybody going there. In the last week of May is the Canadian Tabletop Championships in Ottawa. And then on June 15th and 16th, I believe, is the Warhammer Open in Edmonton. It's the first year that Edmonton's gotten their Warhammer Open, which is a fairly major event. So we're going to be road tripping up there and making sure that no dirty Americans come up to steal it. And after all is said and done with the qualifiers, we're hoping to have, we would like to get a dozen Canadians going down again. And then we party like it's 1812 down there. And we like to go down there and steal their hardware and try and get back to Canada with our loot.
Nice. That's amazing. If somebody was interested in creating a Warhammer community, what is it that they can do?
So I sort of listed them off. I actually wrote an article for the Spent Glory blog out there on how to build a community for it. I would really refer to that. But the big parts about it, set a date and be consistent. Even before that, though, cowboy up. If you want to build a community, you got to be the one to do it. No one's going to do it for you. It can be one of the most thankless tasks out there, but you got to do it. Let the Wookiee win. Just like with crack, your first hit is free. Your first game is free too. Make it as easy for someone to come join. Organize the events, because if you build it, they will come. And then organize the road trip. Especially anybody that's gone rugby touring will know it is fun to go play your game in other places. And the same is true for Warhammer. There's a lot of organization involved. There's a lot of headaches involved. Obviously, I feel that it's worth it. Maybe I need more Warhammer like a hole in the head, but that's really what's come across here.
And then let's switch gears. Do you want to switch gears? You want to talk a little bit about Bitcoin?
I can always talk about Bitcoin.
So what's the Bitcoin community like? I know everyone hears about Bitcoin and you hear, I guess it's more the negative stuff of all the scammers and all that kind of stuff. But I do know you're doing some really cool things with some Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I built my first Bitcoin mining rig in 2014. When it came to that, I really liked the concept of Bitcoin, but because we were in Canada, it was really hard to buy yourself. Also, being a bit of a tech nerd, I decided that I wanted to build my own Bitcoin mining rig because that seemed like the coolest little hobby. It cost a few $100s to put in. I mined for a while. I was able to keep it running. And the big thing about it in 2014, you didn't have YouTube telling you how to build everything properly, and you didn't have Amazon to get the right parts. So it was built on this Walmart shoe rack, and it had these two bronze 600-volt power supplies and five GPUs. And it just looked like this Frankenstein monster of some mentally disabled child tried to put it together. But it worked. And I was quite proud of it for quite a long time. I was able to keep it running for about 2, 3 years before the tech got obsolete. One of the interesting things about cryptocurrency generation is that it does get harder as time goes on. So you get less rewards for more work, essentially. So it really became unprofitable. And at that time, I was running it in my work office and I was changing careers at that point. So I actually took it apart, stripped it down for parts, sold all of those. And I timed it pretty well because one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is that there's always a price cycle. So you get to a really good peak and then down into a valley and then it builds back up again. I turned a few $100s into a couple thousand, not very much. I certainly am not someone that's gotten rich off doing this. But what I've been able to do is really support that hobby and then started importing more machines, building them for other people. Along with that, I worked with a company called Jewelport Technologies out of Vancouver and partnered with them using my company, Alberta Crypto. And we actually started developing heat reuse for them. The reason for that is that Bitcoin miners produce a lot of heat. So by putting them in essentially a pool of dielectric fluid, you can run it through your home heating system. And so right now I've got a Bitcoin heated home. It's been a lot of fun to do. There are times when I'll spend the entire weekend making sure that it's working and it's working to the degree that I want it to be. It's always been something really interesting for me. And then last summer, I spent quite a bit of time up north building an industrial Bitcoin mine that was powered from flare gas. So there's a lot of the technology side that I've really enjoyed about it. When you get back to the community, there's really a lot of different sides of it. You have those techies out there that I love comparing notes with. There are lots of the libertarians out there that really don't like to have to depend on government issued currency. And there are definitely the anarchists out there that believe all the governments are going to fall and we're going to need this digital currency there. I would encourage anyone that would be interested in that to go to any of the local Calgary meetups. If you wanted a really cool YouTube channel, go to BTC Sessions. Ben there, he's actually local to Calgary, as if not the biggest sort of Bitcoin podcast in Canada. It must be up there. And you get to learn a lot about all the way from the basic needs of Bitcoin all the way up to some of the cool tech that's out there.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
No, that's also super nerdy.
Well, like you said, you have layers.
Yeah, exactly.
So what made you get into the Bitcoin? What was it that
You know what? I like the idea of a decentralized currency. Bitcoin started right after the 2008 financial collapse and was meant to try and get the power of currency away from governments that really were obviously abusing it. And if you take a look at our 30% inflation since COVID, you see that happening some more. So, one of the really big advantages of Bitcoin is that if you have a really irresponsible prime minister or president that spends a lot of your money and prints off a lot more loonies, it's not going to devalue Bitcoin. If you're in the Eurozone and say you're German, but Italy has just crashed your euro, well, there's not much you can do about that, but Bitcoin fixes that. If you're in a more authoritarian state like Russia or China, and where the government just blatantly devalues your currency in order to get a new trade deal, again, you've got a way to get around that. It's funny, it really does get you away from the fiat system. And the more that you have in Bitcoin, the more that you're not spending on inflationary taxes. That's the big part of it for me. So I always wanted to invest at least a little bit into it. And because when I first discovered it, it wasn't like now where you can go on some really good, really secure exchanges. be able to pay a little bit of money. My biggest recommendation on this is Bitcoin Well, by the way. If you ever wanted to get some very secure Bitcoin that would go straight to your wallet, that's the way to do it. Again, run by local Calgary people. It's the best way to actually get a little bit of Bitcoin in your wallet right there. For me, I started mining it because that seemed like a really interesting hobby to try. And it's gone from hobby to side hustle to full time job to side hustle to really interesting technology that I like playing with.
And you also are using solar power too, right?
That's right. So my house, and shout out to Saeed at Talat Electric, who's probably been the most steadfast person in all the ridiculous electrical things that I've done. We put together my solar panels this summer. So what's nice about it is that during the winter, the Bitcoin offsets my natural gas costs, and during the summer, the solar panels offset my electrical costs to get the Bitcoin.
That is so cool. And you've got a couple Bitcoin miners now, don't you?
Right now, I'm just running one. I typically have anywhere between 2 to 12 because I'll often get new things as they're coming in, whether it's something that you can just plug into a simple wall outlet or something that just runs on a single node or something that will mine multiple cryptocurrencies at once. There's a lot of interesting things. And then as I take a look at it, I'll either resell them or work with someone else to find a good use for them. So right now in my home right now, I've just have the one that's in the boiler heating the house, which was really nice when we got to minus 21. So I'm currently looking at that, comparing that to previous heating bills, seeing how cost effective this actually worked out to be.
Is it cost effective? I'm sure it is.
I think it is, but what I'd really like to do, because at the end of the day, I'm an analyst, right? I want to spend the good 6 months, a year, like a full heating season, actually seeing, hey, this is what it compared to last year. Because as much as I love the miners that I have, it's not going to be able to offset a full furnace. So we were able to use essentially heat pump technology that will use the Bitcoin miner as it's needed. But if it gets too cold outside, that the Bitcoin miner won't be able to produce enough heat. It'll cycle out of that loop and then turn on the natural gas element.
It gives people different options
That's right.
of like heating their home, but then also being able to make money or to offset the costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Back in the day, everybody was at home. They had a little garden in their backyard. I've got one in my garage. It's just farming Bitcoin instead of vegetables.
And let's get into some rugby. I love
We
rugby.
got to go back to
We
rugby.
got to go back to the rugby community too. You said you started in high school. What grade did you start?
I actually should say when I was in elementary, my dad was playing for the Red Deer Titans and he was a teacher in Red Deer. And there was already a high school program, but he and a few other teachers that also played for the Titans decided that they wanted to start up a junior high league. So I was I want to say 8-year-old water boy for the junior high team. And I saw that and I knew that's what I wanted to play. By the time I got to junior high, we didn't have a rugby team anymore, but I got to play in high school for Notre Dame up in Red Deer and then played for the Titans. Came down to do university at U of C and then got a pretty bad concussion. So I had to take probably about 6, 7 years off and didn't come back to rugby till I was 29.
Yeah. And then who did you play for when you were 29?
So first off, the Calgary Irish, and I love those guys there. After COVID, I went over to the Knights to just play recreational rugby. And what's really nice about it is that now a lot of the guys from the Irish that I played with back then, they've started getting a little bit longer in the tooth as well. And so they've brought back their recreational team. And I got to tell you, one of the funnest things that you can do is running into your friends. Boy, we enjoy that. And especially Crazy Dave from the Irish, we make sure that we're going to be playing against each other, and neither of us are able to walk straight for about 3 days later. So all the love to those guys and all the love to the Knights that let me run around and yell. And I've discovered a long time ago that my biggest contribution on that pitch is really just yelling at the younger guys on the team to go and do what I'm too slow to do right now. So if they need to make a hit, if they need to make a run with the ball, those young guys can do that, man. I'll stick to my battlefield voice there.
All right. And then best rugby story.
Oh, the Cobra Kai Rugby Dojo is a group of social rugby players got started, I want to say 2012, 2013. And we went down to Missoula for Maggots Fest. When you join this team, you get your rugby gi, you get your training shirt, you get your shorts, and then you get your Speedo. And the Speedo has the Cobra Kai symbol on the front and the CKRC. And when Corinne mentioned that she saw me at Stampede Sevens in 2022, I might have only been wearing that and a cowboy hat. And so now imagine 15 of us wearing Speedos and cowboy hats, wandering around downtown Missoula, being just as responsible as 15 guys in Speedos should be. It was probably the funnest tour I ever went. A lot of great stories, a lot of great people from that. It's funny because you think about going on tour nowadays, it's the Murtaugh rule. I'm too old for that stuff. Maggots Fest is a pretty big reason why I know I'm too old for that stuff.
Megan Pest is awesome. I haven't been down there. I want
Yeah,
to. I want to.
it's amazing. It's a lot of fun. And you know what? One of the favorite things when we were with the Irish, back when Las Vegas had the Vegas Sevens instead of the USA Sevens in, is it San Francisco or Los Angeles now? Do you know?
I'm LA, I want to say, but I could
Yeah,
be
it must
wrong.
be LA. I think you're right. So back when it was in Vegas, they would have a open and premier tournament for 2, 3 days before the actual Vegas Sevens. I want to say exactly 9 of us got a sevens team together. We were all forwards. We easily outweighed all the teams that actually brought a full roster of 12 people. And we played against, I think, the Costa Rican national team, and there's a team from London. We played against the US Navy selects and the US Air Force selects. We imbibed the entire time down there. We certainly weren't expecting to do very well, but boy, when the Sexy Manatees did our 7-man maul, that was pretty unstoppable for this level of sevens that we were playing there.
Sexy manatees, I love it.
Yeah. Well, when you have 7 forwards on the pitch trying to play sevens, you need to make sure that they know that the other team knows what they're up against here.
Especially in sevens, because
Yeah,
you might
exactly.
not run very fast, but you can
Yeah.
hit definitely really hard.
Yeah.
But you do catch
Problem is, we
them.
got to catch them.
You have to catch them, but when you do, you hit them hard.
There you go.
So what's your favorite part about rugby?
You know what? It's funny. It's running and smashing and drinking. Those would be my 3 favorite things. Maybe not in that order, but it gets you out. It gets you out with a group of really like-minded people. It's funny. There might be some not nice people that play rugby. I've yet to find them. I think everybody that I've gotten to play with or against has been pretty damn awesome. It's really just a great culture, and it's a great way to spend a Friday evening or a Sunday afternoon.
It's fun to go running around. I really like the culture of it. Is my favorite part
Absolutely.
of it. Having played other sports and when we play basketball, it was like we hated the other teams, and
Right.
after the game, you're lucky if you have a handshake with them, and that's about it. With rugby, it's so fun to just be able to go out and drink and hang out and say good hit to to your opposite player, right? And I love that. I just love the community and that connection of being able to just drink and laugh and have a good talk with some of the other players afterwards. Because you don't see the Flames doing that with the Edmonton Oilers, that's for sure. I don't think any other sport does that, right? You would never see soccer players don't do that. Hockey players definitely don't do that. And so it's just nice that rugby has this culture of we hit hard and we play hard, but then afterwards it's you all just have fun afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to talk about
No,
before?
you know what? I really appreciate getting to be on your podcast here. I'm a big fan. I've loved who you've had on there so far. Your friends from the Pair Genius are by far my heroes. So definitely do give, oh no, don't give them a big hug because that would be weird, but maybe give them a high five for me.
I always give them hugs. This is from Derek. They're like, who's that?
No, but you know what? Has been a great podcast that you've had here. I'm really glad that I got to be a part of it. I'll be having my half hitch beard next time I'm out. So keep on getting people on because I really do enjoy hearing everybody's stories, especially local stories out here. So thanks a lot for what you're doing. Eh?
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that because it's been fun and I've just been so blessed to get to know so many amazing people in my life, including yourself. And I know you don't want to brag about it, but when you talk about the Warhammer and rugby and everything else, you just light up.
Oh,
and
thank you.
always so good to see you light up, and have gotten to know you over the last few years, and you're just an amazing person in my life. So I've been really grateful.
Thanks a lot.
So thank you for coming. Where can people find you, Derek? And I can add some of these links into the show notes. So feel free to where
On Discord, if you're looking for Warhammer Underworlds, really just search that and you can find me. My handle on there is Captain Murder with a K. On the easier to find local scene on Facebook, you can always find that there. If you're looking for anything around crypto, I'm always happy to chat with it. And I can probably send you in the right direction depending on your interest there. And for rugby, go to Calgary Knights. We are in recruitment mode right now. It's recreational rugby. There aren't any cuts, but boy, do I yell at you a lot. Make sure you come with a thick skin and wear your boots.
you can always just ignore Derek too.
And you can ignore Derek
I
all you
feel
want.
like half the team pretty much does.
Yeah.
And there is only a men's team this year. Unfortunately, there is no women's team, but that's okay. Like maybe next year. We'll see.
Yeah, which is funny because we still get about 3 or 4 ladies that will come train with us, which we certainly appreciate. And so yeah, everybody's welcome to come for a run and pass the ball.
That's awesome. That's good to know. Well, thank you for coming and joining us today, and we will see you next time. So
Yeah.
thanks, everyone, and stay connected. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I hope today's conversation sparked something new and reminded you of the power of connection. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with others, and continue spreading the message of unity across all walks of life. Until next time, stay connected.